Have you ever prayed for something and it felt like God didn't answer? You believed, you hoped, you waited, but nothing changed? Maybe it was a healing. Maybe it was a breakthrough in your career. Maybe it was a relationship you thought would last forever. And when it didn't happen, you thought, maybe God doesn't care. Maybe he said no. But what if God hasn't said no? What if he's simply saying, not yet? Today, we're going to talk about the hardest thing for any believer to embrace: trusting God's timing. Because God's delays are not denials. Sometimes he's not saying no, he's saying, wait and see. David's dream, God's not you. Let's start with King David. David was a man after God's own heart. He wrote the Psalms. He worshipped with all his might. He loved God deeply. And one day, David wanted to do something beautiful, build a temple for God. But God said, not you. Your son Solomon will do it. Imagine that. You give your whole life to God. You fight Goliath. You lead God's people. You worship in the wilderness. You dream of honoring God. And then he says, not you. That must have stung. But here's the lesson. Even when God says not you, or not now, it doesn't mean your life has no purpose. David prepared the materials. He stacked up the resources. He set Solomon up for success. Sometimes your role isn't to finish the story, it's to prepare the way. Let me ask you, what if the thing you've been praying for isn't meant for you to finish, but for your children, or your community, or someone else who will come after you? That's not failure. That's faithfulness. Why God slows things down. Jesus was a miracle worker, but he was also a teacher, and a good teacher knows when to slow down. Have you noticed that when you pray for patience, life suddenly gets harder? Traffic jams, difficult co-workers, waiting for results. God isn't punishing you. He's preparing you. I once prayed, Lord, teach me to love difficult people. The next day, the most frustrating, stubborn person entered my life. At first, I thought God was ignoring me. But then I realized God was answering my prayer, just not in the way I expected. See, we want God to download virtues instantly, but he often chooses to develop them slowly. Why? Because slow growth is strong growth. A tree that grows overnight can be blown over by the wind. But a tree that takes years to grow roots, that tree can weather any storm. Let's go to the wedding at Cana. They ran out of wine, a huge embarrassment in that culture. Mary tells Jesus, they have no more wine. And Jesus replies, my hour has not yet come. But then Mary turns to the servants and says something powerful. Do whatever he tells you. Notice, she didn't argue, she didn't beg, she didn't panic. She trusted his timing. And then the miracle happened. But not instantly. The servants had to fill giant jars with water, bucket after bucket, sweat on their brows, arms aching, wondering, why are we still doing this? Nothing's changing. And then, after they obeyed fully, the water turned into wine. Maybe you're in that season right now. You've been praying, you've been working, you've been carrying bucket after bucket, but nothing has changed. God's timing feels late. But when the jars were full, when the process was complete, then the miracle came. Let's bring this closer to home. Maybe you've been waiting on God for a job. You've applied, interviewed, prayed. Nothing yet. God isn't saying no. He might be building skills in you for the right opportunity, not just any opportunity. Maybe you're waiting for healing. The doctor's report hasn't changed. You've prayed, cried, begged. What if God's timing means he's healing more than your body? He's healing your soul, your family, your faith. Maybe you're waiting for love. You wonder why everyone else is married and you're still single. But what if God is preparing you, not just for a spouse, but for a healthy marriage? Delays are not denials. They are divine preparation. Think about Joseph in prison. Years passed before he stepped into the palace. Think about Abraham waiting decades for Isaac. Think about Jesus waiting 30 years before his ministry began. God's timing may feel slow, but it is always perfect. Some of you feel like giving up. You've prayed and prayed, but it feels like God is silent. You're tired. You're weary. You're ready to quit. But let me remind you, every bucket you carry matters. Every prayer you whisper matters. Every tear you cry matters. Galatians 6 verse 9 says, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." Your due season is coming, not when you want it, not when people expect it, but when God knows you're ready. Don't mistake delay for denial. Don't confuse silence with absence. God is working behind the scenes, inside your heart, in ways you cannot see. So here's the challenge. Instead of asking, "When, God?" ask, "What are you teaching me while I wait?"